Good morning, good morning. Type 1 if you're feeling this Monday. Type 2 if you're tired. Although you may be too tired to type 2. Who is first today on YouTube? Blue, you're first today. Congrats, Blue. Good morning, Adam. Tina's on. Hello, Brad. Oh, a lot of twos today. Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one. Twana and I both were complaining about this today. Hope you guys are doing well. I know you're like, wait a minute. I thought we were done with the summer stuff. Why does the summer keep fighting back? I feel your pain. But this happens every once in a while. It's not to the extreme of 2019, so don't panic. Yeah, we are certainly back to a warmer setup today, tomorrow, and another warm surge that is showing up in the longer term before we start to see a chance to get these fronts a little down, a little closer to our neck of the woods. It's been a bit of a challenge, and I'll explain why and where we are on this whole thought process as of today. But as always, you guys can chime in with your comments, as you always are, which I love. Don't get me wrong. Twana, are we at the disco? Should I start dancing? Twana, you're always dancing, so I don't think you would need music for that. You just dance if I'm just tapping my fingers on the desk there. I hope you all are doing well. Had a good weekend. It was a nice, quiet weekend, right? No major weather concerns there. Lots of sunshine. And get used to the sun. It's going to be very bright with lots of dewy mornings on your car there on a daily basis, it looks like. All right, let's get into the fun and games. This is what you guys are really here for, and that is the countdown to winter. 83 days. Let's hope it arrives on time. Although I'm not opposed to it being a little late sometimes. It's just that winter being on the 1st of December, it puts it awful close to Christmas. And I don't think it's the one time of the year that we don't get a lot of complaints about snow if it falls in the holiday season. A lot of people like that. They don't like it on travel, but they like it for the obvious ambience you get the holiday season, having snow on the ground, right? So, but here it tends to be typically about the second week of January before we really see a lot of change. But this year is going to be a bit odd. I know Adam's going to ask me here in a second, or somebody, or Cameron. I can't go into a lot of detail yet, but I don't think it's going to be as cut and dry as you're thinking. I think it is going to be certainly segmented. So we'll be covered on in the coming days. I can't help myself. I always give you guys teases, and then you always get mad at me. All right, here's the latest look at Huber's Orchard and Wineries. Anyone made it up there to Huber's yet? You get your pumpkins? I know everyone gets worried when you get them too early because you don't want to, obviously, don't carve them. Don't carve them until you get really close to Halloween. Otherwise, you're going to get a weird-looking face, especially with this kind of sunshine and warmth that we got in the short term. But always a good time up there at Huber's this time of the year. And these, usually we have to find a weekend, right? In October, it seems like we have to find a weekend that's good to get out. Sometimes the weather can mess things up, but there are a lot of good weekends that are showing up here. So you have plenty of options this year, which is a big plus to pick out your time and your weekend. Cameron, you were going to ask. Yep. I knew. Cameron, I know you well. Cameron. How much information have you missed? Not a whole lot, ZK. Not a whole lot. Just rambling, as always. Okay, good. Let's get into it. Outside, we've had that beautiful warm weather. We made it to 87 yesterday. If you're wondering, the records this time of the year do run really high, upper 90s to near 100. So we've been hot before, really hot. And it was not long ago, although it's getting further away now in time. It seems like yesterday. But it was 2019 that we had the mid to upper 90s, which a lot of the records into the first week of October are from 2019 because of that particular heat wave. That was an exceptional drought situation, really bad. So the heat was a big problem. The drought, unfortunately, is going to be another big topic again this week. That rain we had, 3 inches of rain, do you remember that last week? Yeah, that's all going to be erased very soon. With this kind of warmth in the mid 80s, even upper 80s, you erase the moisture content on the top layer of the soil rapidly. Not as bad as you would be if you were in the 90s, but it does dry out fairly quick. So the drought status, it's going to be interesting this week to see how, because it'll have a full range of data. It'll be fairly accurate for this week's. It comes out because tomorrow the ground is sampled. So whatever the drought map is this Thursday will be a very accurate representation of where we're at. And it's going to probably improve in a couple spots, but unfortunately not as much as we were hoping there, but not a shocker. Last time we hit 90 was on the 20th, 9 days ago. We crossed over into the lower 90s. We're going to get close. I know I said that I feel that we're done, and I'm going to hold on to that because I'm stubborn, very stubborn person. We may get close, but fall just under that mark. And then we're going to see a change in our wind flow later this week. So that will, while not a whole lot is going to change on our weather setup, we will see everything kind of evolve into a slightly cooler setup. Billy, how'd you find us, Billy? Billy, Louisville, but what state is in? This is in Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, not Louisville, down into Mississippi. But this is Louisville, or technically it's Louisville for King Louis, but we say Louisville. You ever watch the movie? What's that movie with Orlando Bloom and Kirsten Dunst? I can't remember the name of it. Where they're in E-Town. Maybe it's called Elizabethtown. I think it is Elizabethtown, right? Where they battle about how to say Louisville on the plane, which I always loved that scene. Adam, I bet we hit 90 today. It's going to get close. If we weren't so dry, I would say, no, I'm not worried about it. I'm a little worried. It's going to get close. Louisville, yes. Yeah. Louisville down there in Mississippi. I've had to mention you guys several times when I worked at the Weather Channel before. There's a few as you mentioned, there's several states that have them listed. All right, so here's where we're going to go with this. Quiet now. We got a few clouds out there. Otherwise, temperatures again about 10 degrees above normal today and really even tomorrow. And then we'll change things up. More on that in a second. We got the twinsies. That is on track to have the twins, right, of our soon-to-be. They'll both be hurricanes at the same time. And Imelda may be a hurricane, I would say, late tonight, maybe the 5 a.m. advisory tomorrow morning. It's going to be close. But it's looking a lot better right now. And then Umberto, which has already hit 5 status. But that's all estimates, too, by the way, on the Cat 5. We did not have a single aircraft recon go into Umberto because it's not threatening a land area. So because of that, it's too far out to really do a lot of flights into it. So they just rely on satellite data, and they're estimating it at Cat 5. But there's a chance that Umberto could be reevaluated postseason, which is pretty typical when they really dive into the data a bit more. And it could be one of the stronger ones we've had this season. It just didn't get a lot of attention because it's not threatening as much as Imelda was getting a lot of attention, and for good reason, because it's so close to the United States. But when you have a twin setup here, this is very interesting because as we've talked about before, only one can really be the stronger one. One has to be typically the weaker one. And when you get that kind of effect, the weaker one has to follow the path of where the stronger one will go. It kind of hooks onto it and grabs it and just says, follow me. The problem with Imelda that we had last week was it wanted to jump the gun and jump out ahead of Umberto and quickly become a hurricane and head into the Carolinas. And that was the big concern, was its forward motion and its organization trend. But obviously over the weekend, that was a struggle. It had a lot of land interaction with Hispaniola, and it had a tough time getting its act together. So because of that, it gave Umberto plenty of time to become the boss. And because of that, Imelda just kind of suffered the fate of not being able to get pulled north, which is not a bad thing. This is a good thing, right? We don't want a disaster anywhere. So it's already bad enough. It's going to be quite stormy for the Bahamas. A lot of the cruise lines, I'm sure, have canceled or moved dates. You can't definitely cruise in this kind of weather. And the beaches, the Carolinas, are going to be a mess for the next few days. Not exactly beach weather. I know a fall break is happening in many spots, so a lot of folks are trying to get to the beaches. Florida, not too bad, especially the Gulf side, but the East Coast is going to be a little messy for a while here. All right, so you can see the twin systems. I want to do a quick update on that. Here's a look from space, looking straight down. Umberto actually got a little strong this morning. I got up to Cat 4 again. Tried to develop the eye. It kind of has been coming and going a bit. There's a bit of a flare up the last second. It got up there again to a decent 4 status, but it should come back down again. It's kind of doing a bit of a cycle. Meanwhile, you got Imelda, which is really getting, a little more concentrated canopy of thunderstorms. It's getting to the Gulf Stream too, that warm belt of water located about 100 miles or so east of the Carolinas. So it's moving into that territory. So as of last update, it was at 50 was the label on it, and Umberto was at 145 Cat 4. And look at the zigzag in here. I mean, it's just wild to see the pulling effect that happens both these systems. These will be big heat engines, of course, always talk about and brag about them. And in that sense, I mean, they are the most powerful heat engines we got on the planet. And when you interject them into the upper air pattern, you get a lot of wild ripple effect. Now, because they are east of us, the ripple effect for us probably will not be really felt until later in the month when we see kind of a repeating cycle. And we'll see what happens down the road. But for at least Europe, they could have big implications there. But because they are heat engines, they stall the weather pattern down. We have a very warm setup. That's why our numbers have increased on highs the past couple of days. That's because the stalling effect of Imelda is allowing for the heat to really kind of just build over the region now. Instead of getting a cloud canopy, which looked like that would have been the case even as early as our last Friday, that looked to be possible. Not anymore. All right, so there's the outlooks on those systems. So let's get into our outlook here locally. There is a small moisture return. You see it right there as we get into later this week that tries to build up the moisture up the Mississippi. I don't think it's going to be enough to really change our weather, but that's the only moisture surge I'll really see. Otherwise, it's fairly dry. Remember the big, strong, monster high pressure? Well, that's still there, and that's the reason why temperatures do drop just a few degrees later this week. Instead of us getting hotter each day, which typically is the case when we talk about warm spells, right? This is a little different. The high is moving in. It's a clockwise flow around it, so we're actually going to get a cooling effect, and our temperatures, even without rain or even clouds, will actually start to go down instead of going up. So today and tomorrow will be the only really warm days this week, and then we'll just dial it back slowly. Nothing too dramatic. I don't think you're really going to notice, to be honest, but it does allow for still 20 to as much as 30-degree temperature swings every single day. That's pretty impressive. Very normal for October to see that, by the way. But that's nice. That keeps it from being relentless when you get these warm spells like this. It's not as many complaints about it per se, because you do have a chance to still get into the 50s and 60s every single night, which is nice. A lot of dew out there on the cars too this morning. We'll have that again on a near daily basis coming our way. Once the high moves off to the east, we do warm back up again because, again, it's a clockwise flow. So once it gets over here into the Atlantic, we do build the numbers back up briefly before we get a front to move in. So we're not done with the mid, maybe upper 80s. We could do it again about a week from today. It's possible. Otherwise, we'll have to wait for these fronts to get a little more established to build down. You got to build up the snowpack too into Canada. That takes some time in October. But typically the Rockies get colder first and get the snow first in October before we see it locally or anywhere in the Ohio Valley region. And I think this year is going to be pretty normal in that sense. I think the Rockies have a good chance to get more of the mountain snow. You may see a lot of video of that as we head into mid-October especially. So when do we change? When do we see finally a shift in our pattern? Here's the thing. It may take until the end of the week, not the end of this week, the end of next week, before we start to see some changes come our way. One front that will try to move down, I don't know if it's going to go as far south as Kentucky as the Euro wants to take it, but it will try to do a slight drop. But this is the one right here in the Rockies that will eventually arrive just beyond the range that I can show you. That's the one that could give us some highs in the 60s. Some of the data is trying to go cooler than that. I think 60s is fair right now for mid-October for a temperature drop. Whether or not we get a lot of storm action or rain out of that, I don't know yet. Too early to really make a call on that. We got to figure out first if they can even make it down here, and then we'll figure out the moisture levels. Pretty easy going, guys. I mean, again, the change that we're going to be seeing here for the next several days is going to be very slow to evolve. Not a lot of rapid change here. So it's going to be a status quo type of forecast. We're going to have to entertain each other on the blog here every day, guys, because there's not going to be a whole lot of change coming. But if you really love this stuff, and a lot of you do, you like these really sunny days, not overly hot and cool mornings, this is typically what fall can be about here in the Ohio Valley. So this is actually really nice weather. I wish we had a little more rain chances in the outlook here for fall color, but it may be tough to really, I mean, the rain helped last week, don't get me wrong, but there's still enough drying here before we get into the main coloring of the leaves here that I do think it may taper down the show just a bit. The drought's really done a number on us this year. Any questions I can ask? Because again, I know you're going to ask a lot about long-term stuff, but a lot of long-term stuff that is going to feature change you guys are going to be excited about, knowing you all, will be more mid-October. So the next couple of weeks, fairly quiet. Any questions? Let's see. Oh yeah, so debating on Louisville and Louisville. Yeah. You got no alerts, Carrie? I got them on my phone, so I don't know how that's all distributed, but I got them at least on the apps that came out. Social media side of things, I don't know. I don't. That's out of our hands. Sometimes it works well, and sometimes it doesn't. I think the third-party companies like YouTube and Facebook and X sometimes struggle a bit on those notifications because they don't always. It has to be a very easy flowing system. It doesn't always work great, but unfortunately, we can't control that. But it's an option at least. 83 days. 83 days. Yeah, until winter. Let's see. Any questions? Everyone's quiet today. Hey, Danny. Hope all is well. If the front doesn't make it down next weekend, do we continue the warmth? Yes, we would if the fronts can't get down. But you got to keep in mind there's something else that's happening that you're probably not noticing as much, and that is the sun angle is getting lower every single day. So as that continues to lower in the sky, there's a limit. You can't get hot as you evolve through the fall season because there's not enough heating that takes place. And there's a lag in that with the planet. So we typically don't see that until several days later or weeks later, actually. But yeah, we're eventually going to have limits on how warm we can get. To get into the mid to upper 80s in early October, yes, that's absolutely reachable. Mid October, it's going to be really tough. In late October, not unheard of, but really difficult, really difficult. And we'll talk more. I'm going to get 2 pieces of long-term data this week. I'm not sure which day I'll discuss it. I may do it. I may split it. We'll see. But I'm going to get 2 pieces of long-term data this week, and we'll go with that. And that's just discussing October that I'm going to be covering, not all the way into the winter. Sorry, Cameron and Adam. But I will cover that somewhat to give you guys a better heads up on this, especially for those of you trying to plan long-term. All right. All right, guys. I hope you guys are having a good day. Stay safe. Hang tight and enjoy the beautiful weather. If you don't have the Halloween decor up yet, you got plenty of time here to get all your inflatables back up again. Just keep in mind that you still may have to mow the grass. So as you place your inflatables, keep that in mind. The grass will be growing a little slower now that we're getting a lower sun angle, but you don't want to have to take the inflatables down and mow, which I had to do last year because I put them up too early. I think I'll put mine up in like August. All right. Anyway, you all have a good day. I'll catch you guys coming up on the flip side at 11 a.m. on midday. Take care, everyone. See you soon.